I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we sing Texas Our Texas and the Texas Pledge, I want you to remember that it was 185 years ago today, Colonel James Fannin and 400 Texans were massacred at La Bahia. It was Palm Sunday. Colonel Fannin and I share a little something. We were both born and raised in the state of Georgia. The important thing to know is that men and women from all parts of this great nation answered a call of duty, a call of liberty and freedom. And we must remember Colonel Fannin and those who were massacred at La Bahia, just the same as on the battlefield of San Jacinto. When they charged against Santa Anna, they shouted, "Remember the Alamo, remember La Bahia." Texas, our Texas, all hail the mighty state. Texas, our Texas, so wonderful, so great. Boldness and grandness, withstanding every test. Oh, empire wide and glorious, you stand supremely blessed. God bless you, Texas, and keep you brave and strong, that you may grow in power and worth throughout the ages long. God bless you, Texas, and keep you brave and strong, that you may grow in power and worth throughout the ages long. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. I now call upon the Secretary to read the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, members. I notice there are some empty seats still, so help us out, please. If you have people next to you who show up, they do need to tell me when they show up if they miss the roll call. Otherwise, they are not here. And as always, if you leave early, you need to come and tell me. All right, beginning the roll call, Chairman Alan West.
Here.
Vice Chair Kat Parks. Secretary Virgil Cruz, I'm here. Treasurer Tim O'Hare. Tim O'Hare. General Counsel Susanna Dockefield. Assistant General Counsel Rachel Hooper. Parliamentarian Richard Hayes. Sergeant at Arms Mike McCloskey. Chaplain Rich Stoglin. Finance Chair Ed Trevis. Historian Dr. Tim Wesley. RNC Committeeman Dr. Robin Armstrong. RNC Committeewoman Tony Ann DeShield. Now beginning from the Senate districts, Rhonda Anderson.
Here.
Charles Blankenship.
Here.
Jerry Fisher.
Here.
Walking in. Stephen Stanley. Here. Janice Holt.
Here.
David Covey. And are you here by the default proxy? You're going to just wait for him to show up. Okay, thank you. Gwen Withrow. Chris Bro. Joe Miller. Bill Fairbrother, represented by Joe Miller, default proxy. Don McDonald. Chris McDonald.
Here.
Members, could we keep our conversations down, please? A little quieter, please. Deborah Fight. Tom Nobis.
Here.
Maggie Witt. Abraham George. Ann Gephardt. Steve Atwell. Jill Tate for Susan Wright. Warren Norrid. Tanya Robertson. H. Scott Apley. Jill Glover.
Here.
David Wiley. Dawn Elliott.
Here.
Roy Morales.
Here.
Olga Lasher.
Here.
Fernando Trevino Jr.
Here.
Gail Stannard.
Here.
Rolando Garcia. Susan Fountain.
Here.
Matt Patrick. Becky Green.
Here.
Sean Sheehan. Edie Sinclair. Joe Walsh, represented by Edie Sinclair, is that correct? Yes, Edie? I didn't hear you. Thank you. Dr. Alma Arredondo Lynch. Frank Lopez Jr., represented by Mary Knowlton.
Here.
Correct?
Correct. No.
Grace Jones.
Here.
Carmen Calderon. Here. Naomi Narvaez.
Present.
Terry Harper.
Here.
Debbie Duke.
Here.
John Carr. Leslie Thomas.
Here.
Stephen Broden. Mary Jane Avery.
Here.
Jack Barcroft, represented by Chip Howell.
Present.
Chris Coons.
Here.
Mark DeRizio. Marion Stenko.
Present.
Fred Rangel. Morgan Graham.
Yeah, there's the phone over there.
Carlos Caspos. Robin Hayes.
Here.
Steve Evans. Robin Cooper.
Present.
Mark Dunham. Dion Starnes. Britton Brooks. Debbie Hayes.
Here.
And Carol Precure. Again, if people arrive late, your counterparts, please send them to me. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, you have a...
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. First order of business today, our standing committee reports. We will start with our Candidate Resource Committee, Mr. Steve Atwill.
Let me get a shot of caffeine real quick. Let me think what I was going to say.
Good morning. Good morning. That somebody's awake. That was quite a barbecue we had last night, wasn't it? That was great. I noticed all the cows at the ranch were hiding. Let's see, where's Virgil? Oh, we got the slideshow. Brandon, got a slideshow? Okay. While he's getting a slideshow ready, let me tell you a quick anecdote. I'm Southern Baptist, which goes with a lot of jokes. This Baptist deacon was shipwrecked on an island for years and years and years, and finally someone saw him. They sent a rescue boat, so they started picking him up and had to gather his stuff. And the captain of the boat said, "I noticed that you have 3 huts there." And he goes, 3 huts? I said, "Have you always lived here by yourself?" And he goes, "Yes." He said, "Well, why 3 huts?" He goes, "Well, one's where I live." I said, "Okay. The other one's where I go to church." He goes, "Oh, okay." He said, "What about the third one?" He says, "That's where I used to go to church." Anyway. All right. Candidate Resource Committee. We adjourned sine die. And yes, that's my East Texas Latinized version of that. We have ended our term. Our terms run really odd compared to the rest of the SREC, which you know, and is meant to fit the election cycle. We've adjusted back and forth several times, but when the new members are ratified, and then for 2 years, and then when the convention hits, we are basically rolled over into it because you cannot have something from a previous convention come over into the next one without a vote. And so we have multiple votes on reestablishing this committee. This has created a great deal of continuity for this group because the people who actually raise the money are allowed to vet the candidates and distribute the money as best they can. Because I think that's it is hard to raise money, guys. Those of you who are doing that, I know Jill raises money for the TFRW. It seems easy in your mind when you start, then you start getting a lot of brick roads, a lot of no's, and competing things. It is tough. This committee has been going since the 80s. It has a long history. People back then, the funds were not raised by you. It was just the RP teachers wrote a check, and it wasn't a lot of money, but it was a start. And now, since we have been doing this, I've been the chairman for 6 years, and Jane Cancino was it for about the same amount of time before that, and we try to rise above a lot of the political infighting. We try to promote integrity and stability in our actions. What everybody does outside of this committee, you guys can fight all you want, and be as partisan as you want. But in the committee, we're there to do a job, and we do it with the highest integrity or level playing field to get Republicans elected. Next slide. I'm controlling that. I'll tell myself. If you guys remember our big elephant from our convention, that was the Fort Worth convention, and our logo. Just to let you know, you guys who've been committee chairman for the first time, it took us 9 months to get that logo approved through their design. And that's before we were allowed to do any kind of online stuff or telephone calls. We'd come up with a proposal and someone would sit there and go, oh, I don't like that elephant. It looks like it's in a barnyard doing something to somebody. And I was like, oh, gosh. So we had to go a 3-month redesign, and all of it was volunteer stuff. So we finally came up with that. That was a compromise, and that's what we had. But since I'm an independent petroleum geologist, I work for myself. I don't like a lot of red tape. It was a kind of education in itself. This is our committee, and what we are going to do today is I'm in the process of trying to find my replacement because I'm term limited. I will serve to the convention. I've asked several people to consider taking over, but everybody goes, oh my Lord, that is such a big job. So what I worked out with the chair, Lisa, that I would find some people to train them and let them select who they want to move forward on this. And then when they feel like they're comfortable, I'll turn the reins over to them. But we want to keep that continuity. Like I said, over the last 6 years, we've raised over $450,000 and distributed. This last year was a nightmare, if you can imagine us going through. When we came out of convention where we raised most of our money, we had $50,000 in the bank. And through extraordinary thinking outside the box as committees, what was it, about 130, 400 there? We ended up having 130, which, I wanted to do a $250,000 because I always wanted to do more, but we won a lot of races, and we think are very effective. And this is your committee. I mean, we encourage people to come in and testify on candidates and give us input and stuff, and we have. You guys have reached out to us and say, there's a problem with this candidate, or this guy needs a little bit more consideration. And we take that into account. And we also require you guys, as SREC members and county chairman, to make a recommendation on these candidates, because you guys are the boots on the ground and you know what's going on. At this time, this is the list. What we're going to do is roll over the committee in the next 3 months. We're going to go to each individual and see if they want to continue to serve, and then if they do not, we'll find a replacement. If you're interested in serving on this committee, let us know. At this time, I'd like to propose that we adopt these names of the officers as members. What's the motion? Well, I can't make a motion. Okay. I need someone to move that we accept this list as, you guys have the chair, okay. Yeah, you got a point, okay. We'll do it, those are good. Good? No, I got a little bit more, but I'm not gonna fall. Okay, I'll do push-ups.
No, it could be worse. The term of the committee members of the CRC have just been completed. Chairman Bill Fairbrother, Marion Stanko, Ann George, Dion Barnes, Deborah Kelty, Janice Holt, Chris Coons, Ann Gebhardt, Joe Waltz, Gwen Withrow, non-SREC, Virgil Cruz, Harold Jenkins, Rena Peden, Fred Tate, Bob Borochoff, Mona Bailey. At large statewide, Est, Kat Parks. Expansion members, SREC or non-SREC, Amy Powell, Karen Newton, Ralph Fite. Ex officio members, non-voting, Tony Ann DeShield, Robin Armstrong, Milton Rister. All in favor of confirming the appointments, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
And then I promise 90 days from now, I'll set you free. You can see her head explode in the back. We've got, let me see. Here we are. We got a keep-in presentation. And it was, and you guys that were around last time that we got to keep in, you guys come forward. Sorry, I'm allergic to Rio Grande. Who was it, Ann, who was it that got the?
Debbie, dear.
Debbie, where's Debbie?
Hey, Debbie.
Keep pins there in a bag in my briefcase, to the middle section. You have to raise $1,000 per year to do that. Come on up. Our state chairman has one of these. Chairman, would you do the honors of presenting this? I've been doing this, and since Jane Casino's been doing this. So give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, we have one auction item, real quick. If you guys, who is our best auctioneer in here? Who can sell ice to Eskimo? No. Colonel, would you mind do the honors of, we have some cufflinks.
You're probably a 40 statement. I've been sold so many bad horses at auction, I'm good for it.
And the item for auction today is this pair of their nickel with, what is that called? Enamel, thank you. My brain's not working this morning. With enamel, they're elephants with the national elephant logo with the stars on the back. So they're cufflinks.
We're going to auction these off? Yes, auction. All right, we're going to auction off these. Anybody want to see them? These beautiful. The cufflinks or? Cufflinks. They're cufflinks.
Or earrings.
So, So I'm gonna open with $50. Walk around with those are beautiful. 75, we have 75 here, do I have 80? $80, $80. $100. $100, 125, 125. 125. Ooh, he got you first, 125. 150, do we have 175, 175? I know, we got our dinner paid for last night, y'all. You got a little stipend left. We all bid. Got you at 150, do we have 175? 175, going once. I'm sorry, 150, the bid is 175 if you want it. She's got it right here at 150. 150 going once. 175, and we have 200. 200 over here. 225, not 250. Not 250, not 275. 275. Come on, show her up. 350. $300. We got 350 over here. Not 400? $400.
You can have it. Okay.
$400 going once. How about 450? $400 going once, going twice.
All right, Fred, you
So,
go.
$400.
Jill's gonna have to buy some French cuff shirts for Fred now. Very good. Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap this up, but I want to thank you guys for all of your help. This is your committee. I want my committee to stand because they have worked hard and. Sure.
The next report will be party organization. Susan.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can y'all hear me back there? The party organization committee met yesterday. I'd appreciate it if all of you would stand and be recognized. And thank you all for serving. Appreciate you. We have a very active committee. Thank you for your service. Anybody, all of the SRECs, after we get through this legislative session in Austin, are welcome to come and join our party organization committee and fill all those session in, so we'll take it. As we have watched the most populous areas of Texas turn blue under the onslaught of Texas, out-of-state Texas monies brought in by progressive liberals, we have continued to depend on the solid red rural areas to hold our ground. We can no longer drag our heels in mobilizing that energy generated by the outrageous theft of our 2020 elections and venting it toward our common goals of handing a resounding defeat to the leftists in the 2022 election. That is not going to happen. The leftists seek to put the final nail in the coffin of liberty in Texas, and that is not the question. What can I do before we lose this country, our country? They want information and guidance, they want organization, and they want direction. We're demanding it. Under the guidance of 2018 to 2020 Party Organization Chair Mary Knowlton, the Party Organization Committee brought forth a budget request to the Executive Committee for $100,000 approved to be set up websites for all county parties to provide a go-to place for basic and consistent information. No, Mr. Chairman, we're not putting our hand out for $100,000, but we seek to solicit volunteers to help us finish this task. It is time to move forward and finish this goal. At this time, we still have 171 of 254 counties across the state with no viable website. Just because there are a few still without chairs doesn't mean we cannot and should not have a viable website for those, for people to go to without any form of leadership or information source. We should not assume that Facebook will not continue to censor conservative thought and should not be used as a sole source of county party information. We still have a great amount of work to do to finish this project. County executive committees. The first thing wisely requested by our newly approved chair for Zapata, Jennifer Thatcher, was a website. She recognizes that the organization, the call for volunteers to organize Zapata County will generate from her leadership. Where it all begins is your precinct level, Jennifer. And after you set your officers in place, we strongly urge you to allow grassroots, providing current manuals, training classes, and constant mentoring. It is our goal to reach out to put information pertaining to these specific areas all county parties, beginning at the lowest of newly energized grassroots members, and show them that we can and will light the way to grow our numbers by recruiting new precinct chairs who understand that communication holds the keys to being successful. We have to make it easier for Republicans to want to learn how the government in which they participate is the government that they will have to live. This is our farm team to groom conservative candidates to run in school board and city councils. These nonpartisan races, and I put that in quotes, which we know is a total misnomer. It is imperative that we get information to our people. We have a very narrow 140 committees. If we do not help our state legislators get many of our priorities passed, sine die, we may not have much left to organize. So with that end, we will begin the task of finishing all of these county parties' websites by the end of this year, hopefully. It's a very daunting task. Thank you, Stephen. But we will come in, and we seek to anybody who would like to help. We IT departments at some of the universities and see if they can help us with these website design, just to get a presence and some information out there. So with that, all my members of our committee, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
The chair hereby appoints SREC member Mary Jane Avery as a member to the Party Organization Committee. If there is no objection, I ask that she be confirmed. There's a move and a second. Mary Jane Avery. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Mary Jane Avery is now appointed to the Party Organization Committee. Next report will be our auxiliaries and coalitions. Pastor Broden is recognized.
computer's pulling it up. Chairman West, Vice Chair Parks, and fellow SREC committee members, I'm pleased to provide you with this report of the auxiliaries and coalition committees' activities. If the members of the committee would please stand. Thank them for their hard work and for their participation over these last few months. The organizations of auxiliaries and coalitions are the 150 Black Men, the High School Republicans of Texas, the Juan Seguin Society, the MLK Association, the Pachyderms, the TFRW, the TARA, the TRA, the TRCCA, the Texas TXFCR and TXRLC, and the TYRs. Do we have that on the board? Okay. Now, we recommend by the committee, but pending approval by the SREC, the slate for consideration of partners pending the SREC approval by bylaws amendments. The first committee has been focused on our responsibility under the bylaws to auxiliaries and coalitions from past SRE remain in good standing. The following organizations have been determined to be in good standing based on ongoing discussions with their committees. High School Republicans of Texas, the Martin Luther King Association of Texas, the National Federation of Pachyderms, and the Texas Republican Assembly. Additionally, two organizations have requested auxiliary designation from the committee and has been found to meet the requirements as established in Article 7, Section 8 of our bylaws, 150 Black Men and the Juan Seguin Society. The committee recommends that the SREC vote to designate 150 Black Men and the Juan Seguin Society, Martin Luther King Association, the National Federation of Pachyderms, and the TRA as 2020-22 RPT auxiliaries.
There's a motion. Okay, where are they listed? Right here. Motion has been presented. Is there a second to this motion? Second. The motion is that we accept as auxiliary designation for 2020 to 2022 the 150 Black Men, the Juan Seguin Society, the HSRTX, the Martin Luther King Jr. Association, the National Federation of Pachyderms, and TRA as our auxiliaries. This will have to be a recorded vote. So everyone get your clicker out. Texas Republican Assembly. Where's the pointing, where's the target? Brandon. Pointed Brandon? Remember, with your clickers, all in favor of the proposed will vote with the voting pad. 1A if you are in favor, press 2B if you are opposed, press 3C if you are abstaining.
It's going to be on the screen.
Can we project it up? First one of the day. There we go. One in Brandon. 1A. Voting will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The motion passes 61-0.
The committee recommends, okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading from the wrong place. Second, the committee has been working to auxiliaries and coalitions to better inform the SREC and grassroots activities across the state about our auxiliaries, the events and activities that are going on with them. We are pleased to announce that the software has been put in place to automatically update the RPT calendar as each auxiliary and coalition updates theirs. We have also gathered updated contact information for all of our affirmed and recommended auxiliaries and have updated the RPT website. The calendar is an opportunity for each of you to go back to your districts and point your constituents towards those calendars to find out what's going on across the state with our auxiliaries, and they can join them in promoting our across the state, to be informed as to what is going on with our auxiliaries and coalitions. Third, the committee has initiated 2 new efforts to improve cooperation between the SREC and our auxiliaries, with the goal of better positioning our auxiliaries to champion our Republican principles and power the campaigns of our Republican candidates so that we can win in 2022. We are planning a summer forum for our auxiliaries to share their success, challenges, best practice, lessons learned, so that they can stand on each other's shoulders. Stay tuned for information in the coming months, and we hope that you will all join us as we support our auxiliaries as they come together to support. We are also reaching out to our state legislators in marginal districts to understand how our auxiliaries have been helpful to their campaign and where they are in terms of making an impact in their particular districts. We hope to understand which organizations, their districts, are making an even larger difference. We have stated, or we have started, with 5 reps, HD 26, Shaheen in HD 66, with Button in HD 112, Allison in HD 121, and Hall in 138, and intend to expand our survey to all 16. We are excited to partner with party organizations to jointly use this data to strengthen our grassroots in marginal districts within 2022. It's an initiative that was started by Sean, and we believe it has a potential for strengthening those marginal districts. Lastly, the committee has submitted an amendment to our bylaws to establish a new partnership status in response to a request made from the Texas Federation of Republican Women and the Texas Republican County Chair Association. The amendment is included in the meeting call and would establish or enable both of these effective Republican organizations to move more closely in partnership with the RPT and the SREC. The TFRW is prohibited by the national bylaw from becoming an auxiliary of any organization. The TFRW, or rather the TRCC, has a problem in that there is a statutory party structure from becoming an auxiliary. We urge you to consider this amendment so that we can strengthen the bond between the SREC and these two fine organizations. On behalf of the committee, the following organizations as 2020-2022 RPT auxiliaries, and we've done that already, so that is good. Now, I want to make one statement about the partnership. The partnership is not a status position. Assume that we are giving a special status that will give them a sort of condescending position to the other auxiliaries and coalitions. That is not the case. What we're attempting to do is answer a need that each of these organizations have, and we would like to have and maintain our relationship with them, and this is a means by which to do that, a partnership. And so I'd ask that you would consider that. We go forward, and we thank you, Chairman and Vice Chair.
We will now have the report of the Resolutions Committee. Ms. Jerry.
Can everyone see me? No, hear me? Here you go. Okay, thank you. Would my committee please stand? Amazing. We were ready yesterday, guys. We're good at this. Yeah. Okay, and we only have two resolutions, and the first one is very, very important to us. It was submitted by Warren Norred, and it's honoring Congressman Ron Wright. Can you read the whole thing? Whereas Ron Wright 2021, after more than 3 decades of public service. Whereas Ron Wright inspired all those west to be near him with an exemplary attitude, work ethic, and a Christian demeanor void of hubris. And whereas Ron Wright's consistent wide range of services before public office included volunteer involvement with Arlington Night Shelter, the Arlington Classics Academy, the Arlington Republican Club, and many others. And whereas an Arlington City Council member, Ron Wright led multiple successful campaigns to stop taxes and bond packages. And whereas after his 2011 appointment to the position of Tarrant County Tax Assessor Collector,
Ron Wright served as the tip of the spear in the state of Texas, teaching taxpayers the process by which property taxes are raised continuously. And whereas in 2004, his office stationery to include "In God We Trust," yes, as an expression of faith, courage, and patriotism. And whereas Ron Wright, consistent service resulted in 2 successful campaigns in which the voters of Congressional District 6 chose him to represent them, and where he continued his work until a second attack of cancer ended his term early. Now therefore be it resolved that the Republican Party of Texas honors the unparalleled service of Ron Wright. Be it further resolved that the State Republican Executive Committee will pause from its duties for 1 minute to allow its members to pray or otherwise contemplate the life of Ron Wright and his family, which includes his wife, Susan, a fellow member of the SREC, as we corporately ask our Heavenly Father as follows. Please pray with me. Remember my servant, O Lord, according to the favor which thou bearest unto thy people. Grant that, increasing in knowledge and love of thee, he may go from strength to strength in the life of perfect service in thy heavenly kingdom. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who liveth and reigneth with thee and the Holy Ghost ever, one God, world without end. Thank you.
Press 1A. If you are in favor, press 2B. If you are opposed, 3C. If you are abstaining, the vote is now open. Entertainment, music. Vote will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Resolution passes 6-2 unanimously.
Thank you. Our second resolution is a resolution supporting state restrictions on the homeless camping in in Austin. And it is submitted by Olga Lasher. Thank you, Olga. And Fernando Trevino. Thank y'all. And this is for the Travis County Republican Party. Whereas the actions of Mayor Steve Adler and the Austin City Council authorizing homeless camping in most public places and all increased crime and lawlessness made the city's homeless problem worse and created a public safety and health concern impacting the operation of state government, prompting action by the Texas legislature. And whereas Senate Bill 987 by Senator Don Buckingham, Travis County, co-sponsored by Senator Turner from Williamson County and Paul Bettencourt from Harris County, and House Bill 1925 by Representative Giovanni Tarrant County would create uniform regulation of this problem statewide and would improve the public safety situation in Austin. Now therefore be it resolved that the state Republican Senate Bill 987 and House Bill 1925, the 87th legislature session, or similar legislation that would protect public safety by curtailing homeless camping and authorize staff and officials to support passage and testify in favor on behalf of the party.
All in favor of the proposed resolution will vote with their voting pad. Press 1A if you are in favor. Press 2B if you are opposed. Press 3C if you are abstaining. Brandon, ready? Vote is now open. Vote will close in 5, 4, 3, 2. Vote is now closed. While we wait for the results of the vote, I'd like to recognize a county chair that is here, the Hidalgo County. Please.
Hello, hi, good morning. Hope you've all had your coffee. I haven't yet. Thank you for your service to the Republican Party. It means a lot, even to us deep down in South Texas. Thank you. God bless you guys. Keep fighting.
Thank you. I told you I was ready yesterday. I talked to Sue Evanwell last night, and she told me to tell all of y'all hi. And if anyone else is interested in the shirts, I'm taking her orders for her today. So thank y'all again. Safe travels home.
Chair recognizes now Mr. Steve Evans of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would love for my committee to rise and be recognized. Mr. Chairman, I want to extend my meeting in my absence. I want to tell you that American Airlines offers you the free hotel because they stuck you in Dallas. It's not like taking candy. Don't take it. Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to recognize a few people. We had some meetings in the interim, and we just got some fantastic pioneering ladies of our party. These Republican women are the backbone of our party. I'd like to recognize them, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to catch hard, but Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize Gail Stannard, Grace Jones, Ann Gephardt, and Naomi Narvaez, who joined all of our meetings. She's made her presence known and has offered some great opinions. These ladies did their best to be at the interim meetings and offer some fantastic point of view, and I greatly appreciate them being present. Our report includes 3 transactionable items. The first being a bylaw amendment originally submitted by Becky Green. Sorry, I don't know what Senate district you're from, Becky. 17, there we go. It would add a new subsection to Article 4, Section 2, Duties of the Chairman, subsection 11. Here's the language. In his or her official capacity, only become a party to a lawsuit or name the Republican Party of Texas as a party to a lawsuit with the express prior approval of a majority of the members present and voting of the officials committee to the SREC via email the details of such litigation prior to any public release. It also, do we have that language, Brandon? I'm going to keep reading while we get that on the screen for you. It would also insert subsection 12, obtain pre-authorization from the officials committee immediately prior to the period during which election will be conducted in order to engage in legal action on behalf of the Republican Party of Texas relating to that election cycle. Mr. Chairman, the committee includes its report and moves adoption.
It is moved and has been seconded that the amendment as projected be adopted. Are you ready for the question? Yes. All in favor of the proposed bylaw? Okay, I just asked. I said, are you ready for the question? Just say no. Who am I recognizing? Recognize Leslie Thomas.
Mr. Chair, Leslie Thomas, SD 20. I move insert, make an amendment to insert after 11, in case of emergency litigation, the officials committee shall be given a and I'd like to speak to my motion. Should it get a second?
Any discussion on this amendment?
my colleagues.
Mr. McDonald, you're recognized.
Chris McDonald. And is this working? Chris McDonald, SD6. Regarding the legislation with 2 hours notice period. With a minimum, with a 2 hour notice. That gives them exact on a
Rephrase the language that you are proposing in your amendment.
Well, yes, it's good. I moved it.
There's been a motion to make an amendment to the bylaw change has been proposed. Is there a second? Second. It has been so moved and second. All those in favor of the language changing, saying in case of emergency litigation, the officials committee may meet with a 2-hour notice, signify by saying aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. Are you ready for the question on the bylaw change? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to. Mr. Chairman, Matt Patrick, SC16. I'd like to amend. Where it says on the second line, with the express approval of the majority of the members present, I would like to strike majority and replace it with 2/3 of the officials committee members. And then strike present and voting. So it should read express approval of 2/3 of members of the officials committee. That's right.
There's a second to the amended language. It has been so moved and seconded that there will be a striking of the word
Mr. Chairman, may I speak to my motion?
Say again?
May I speak to my motion?
Oh, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you. We had some debate on this and division in the Rules Committee about what the appropriate level is. I over into this arena. There are only 9 members of the Officials Committee, including the chairman. So if he's the one bringing the lawsuit, there are only 8 people who are undecided at that point. Language as it was originally written and passed out of committee basically said as long as we have of the officials committee out of 8 that this was a good idea. So it was effectively a 25% voting in favor of it, and it would pass out. So I think that's too low. sure everybody knows that when the party sues someone, we, as executive members of the SRC, are liable. We actually have something in our bylaws that says when we contracts, staff is supposed to ensure that we are excluded from personal. Full support of the officials committee who are there to take action on our behalf. Thank you.
And just a point of clarification, you are talking about the voting members of the officials committee, entire officials committee.
Yes, sir. And if, be happy to amend that so it says voting members of the officials committee.
Mr. Appley, you recognize.
H. Scott Appley, SD 11, speaking against the amendment. I was completely 100% in support of adding this amendment because the idea was that it would bring about a slight check on maybe the chair's discretion and protect the body and have some insight in the body. However, I'm against this because very involved lunch. You're going to have active participation, and so I think that the check was having the officials committee involved, and I think once you add on that involvement, a majority vote would be sufficient at that point. So I'm speaking against the amendment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, request for information. Does this amendment allow all members, even non-voting members, to vote on the officials committee?
If the language here says members, that means all the members of the official committee. If you want to neck it down to just the voting members, there needs to be a change so it says just voting members.
If we could get Brandon to do that, that would be great. 2/3 of the voting members of the officials committee. Thank you for a good clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, Becky Green, SD 17. I am the author of this amendment, and I first of all want to say that this amendment, I want to be clear that this is not a referendum against you or anybody in particular. This has really nothing to do with any lawsuits that we have brought or have currently brought. This is about best practices going forward. It is the job of the SREC and the officials committee, when SREC is not in session, to protect the Republican Party. We can all agree that this past year we have seen all sorts of unprecedented things that none of us have ever seen before in our lifetime and never thought we would ever see. So going forward, this is to protect the Republican Party of Texas and the SREC from becoming enrolled in something that is not the will of this body or our grassroots who we represent to be involved in. The reason is because it would be potentially possible for a chairman in the future to stack the vote in favor of a lawsuit that he wants to bring when it is really not the will of the body. And remember that the chairman appoints 2 members to this committee. He is on the committee as a voter, and the vice chair is on as a voting member of this committee. The other 5, that's 4 members, which could potentially be on the side of the chairman that wants to bring a lawsuit. The other 5 members are elected by the body. So that's a very close margin. And I don't think that 2/3 is a super majority to reach. I think if we are going to be involved in a lawsuit, we should have the collective will of the SREC represented by a minimum of 2/3 of those members voting. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Ms. McDonald, you recognize.
Chris McDonald, as speaking against the proposed amendment. I fully support Ms. Green's concept here. This is the idea to ensure that we have oversight, checks and balances. We've seen the tragedies that happen when an executive authority, such as what happened here in COVID, went unchecked and used emergency authority to enter into legal instruments and did not call in the legislature for oversight. So this ensures that here within the party, we do have a check and balance so that members elected by folks from this body have an oversight. However, as Ms. Green also mentioned, we've seen quite terrible things happen here in the last few years. There's been deaths in families, there's been crashes, there's been tragedies, there's been the pandemic itself. So when you're calling that you got to have 2/3 of the voting members present, that may not be possible just due to tragedy and things that happen. I can tell you personally, my house was frozen during the last thing. I probably wouldn't have made an officials meeting had it been called. And I know that many in this body have faced the same situation. So I believe the biggest issue I have is with it requiring all voting members present.
If you want 2/3, that's fine, but I really believe the original language is best. It provides the intent and the oversight. All we need is a majority of those present and voting, because it provides that check and balance. You've elected these people to the officials committee to be your rep. Let us do our job and don't make this onerous. There comes a point in time where you're micromanaging, and by the spirit of an executive authority and working together as a board of directors, we've got to get this process to happen. So please allow the original language to stand with a majority of those present and voting.
Thank you, Chair. I also stand in favor of the amendment early and opposed to 2/3 for a couple of reasons. Whenever you get involved in a lawsuit, one of the ways that opposing counsel can stymie your efforts by challenging your authority. They can say, well, you don't have authority to represent this organization. If you're an LLC or business entity, there has to be a resolution, unless the executive can do it by himself. So you can mess with people, and we often do, if they haven't done it right. And so having a 2/3 majority makes it easier to mess with us. The other problem is that sometimes you need to take action, and you don't have a clear-cut action. If you don't have 2/3, a slight majority may want to do something else, but neither one of them has 2/3. So they do nothing, and you wind up not being able to act, even though the majority clearly wants to act. So I would suggest to stay away from the 2/3 majority. And I would generally speak to the amendment by saying, it's not even really about checks and balances for me. It's not always a lawsuit that you need to solve a problem. You get your officials committee, somebody may know somebody who can deal with something in a way so that you avoid litigation. It also helps us for all to discuss matters, because that way everybody's on one page. So there's lots of good reasons for the officials committee and to be involved and to know what's going on and to participate in the decision-making process without unduly hammering ourselves and saying, okay, 2/3, what if somebody resigns? Has somebody resigned? Okay, does that make the 2/3 now goes down to 5? Well, they haven't officially resigned yet. Well, I haven't gotten a replacement. As the opponent of the party, I will play with that all day long. You don't have your 2/3, it's just where you can make easy mistakes. I would suggest you stick with the half or the majority.
Ms. Thomas, you recognize.
Leslie Thomas, SD 23. We've heard best practices in this conversation, and I would suggest that the best practice for attorneys for something that's lawful is the majority. And you just heard an attorney who practices this, and he's giving you his professional opinion that it should be majority. And just think about this. If you're requiring 2/3, you need to get together in 2 hours. How are you going to get 2/3 together in 2 hours? It's practically, it's not practicable. So you want to untie the hands of the officials committee, let them do their work, and untie the hands of the chairman and let him do his work. And all we want is oversight and notice. And I think 2/3 just complicates it.
Mr. Covey, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Covey, SD3. I guess part of my evaluation of this would be on the frequency of how often we
bring a lawsuit, do we have an indication of in the last few years, is this a once-a-year thing? Or our history, has the history been that this is a continual type of practice that we bring often, multiple times a year, or is this a random?
Last year.
How often? One?
I think, come to order. Right now, we know that we're in a litigation against you first, but that was a result of the cancellation of the convention. There was the issue with the governor extending the early voting an additional week, and also part of that was our national committee man was part of that lawsuit. But otherwise, there are no other suits that have been brought forward since I became the chair in July.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms.
Naomi
Narvaez.
Narvaez, SD 21. I am speaking in favor of the two-thirds. With all due respect to my fellow colleague, Mr. Warren, in all his wisdom as an attorney, I come to you and I ask that you vote two-thirds because we know, while it might be his experience, we are better off with wise counsel, and we need more members to discuss the situation and refer to wise counsel together, not less but more, because we are liable in a situation as that. So I would ask that our members vote yes.
Thank you. Please silence your phones. I know that's an Amber Alert. Mr. DeRazio, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark DeRazio, SREC SD 25. Mr. Chairman, I'm opposed to the whole resolution. We elected you, re-elected the chairman as the body. When the chairmans have access to information that we don't have.
I think you have to, right now the debate is on this amended language, not the overall bylaw.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll stand corrected. I'm opposed to the two-thirds majority. Because there's times whenever something has to be done very quickly, and we need to be able to step in and make a decision and go with it. So I am opposed to this motion.
Mr. Abraham. George. Been called the question. The question is on the amended language for the two-thirds. Oh, I'm sorry. That's push-ups. I think I'm up to 20. We have to first vote on calling the question so that we can go and vote on the amendment. All those in favor of closing the debate signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The debate is closed. Now the motion with the amended language that you see before you in green, the changes are the two-thirds and also the voting members. We are striking majority and the words present and voting. All those in favor of this amended language change signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Yes. Okay, we will have a standing vote. All those voting in favor of the language of this, as you see in green, please signify by standing.